You ready? Well, let's wait for mine. Good evening, everyone. This is the December 13, 2018 Town of Monroe Planning Board Workshop meeting. Noreen, if you would, could you please do the roll call for attendance?
Anthony DeCaro.
Here.
Lisa McQuaid.
Here.
Rich Triano. Bonnie Franson.
Here.
James McKnight.
Here.
Jason Sarinsky.
Here.
And Jeff Manson.
He's absent, so we have 5-0, a quorum, so we can hold our meeting. I'd like to point out the fire exits. There is one to the front, the main entrance to the lobby, another over by the kitchen, and then another one to the rear of me in the event of an emergency. With that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so the first item on the agenda, returning projects, is Gomez at Country Court. I believe that's for an accessory apartment. Okay. And do you want to come up also and sit up here so you know, if you have any comments with regard to the application, and I know you've been having general thoughts as far as accessory apartment law after it being now in effect for about a year. So why don't we start with Gomez and talking about kind of where we are in the process and any issues that still need to be addressed at this point.
Well, happily, from our standpoint, we believe all the issues have been addressed, and we're looking forward to having you declare yourself lead agency and go in public hearing. Yet, I guess I'm going to imagine that we're waiting for interpretation or a comment from Ben regarding the area of the lot.
Okay, so this is again the situation where it's required to meet the bulk standards, and you're in an R1 district.
Yes.
It was a 40,000 square foot lot requirement, but now with the new zoning, we have a requirement for 43,560, which I know we've discussed before. Also, just in terms of procedure, we don't have to have a public hearing, and in fact, we don't hold a public hearing for accessory apartments. So, and as far as lead agency, I'm not sure if we already determined that this was type 2.
Right?
I think we've been interpreting them as type 2 actions since there's no exterior changes to the building. So with that, Ben, what are your thoughts as far as interpretations and requirements as far as lot area? Because there's this question whether it does need an area variance or not.
Right, and I believe that I gave my comments before to the board.
Okay.
Through Noreen. Right? We talked about that, and it is a corner lot. I think that's my writing on it. It's a corner lot. So it does have to meet all the bulk table requirements. Again, this was built under the old zoning,
Right.
so the house does have a CO for where it was built. But under today's code, it does not meet the full bulk table requirements.
Okay. That being said then, Mike, is it your opinion that this would then need an area variance?
Absolutely, if that's Ben's ruling, it would need one. I think there's an issue on the 10-year provision as well. Dave, is the person who will live in the accessory apartment someone who will be elderly or cared for by the people in the main house?
Yes.
Okay. That would permit you to waive the 10-year requirement, but I think there's also construction. I think there's an issue about the language of the code
Okay.
that talks about the CO and how long it's issued.
And this is a special case because this is a pre-existing accessory apartment, so we're really trying to really legitimize what already exists.
Correct.
Right, as opposed to a brand-new accessory apartment coming in and attempting to meet the regulations. Having said that, just as a general comment, I have brought up to the town board's attention this whole question of R40 zoning versus 43,560 square feet requirements, because the reality is a lot of the housing that's been built in the town, that would be 10 years old, is likely on a 40,000 square foot lot. So it's really a town board determination whether they want to change the zoning to grandfather the 40,000 square foot lots for that particular zoning district. So that's separate and aside, but just so the board is aware, I've raised that to the town board's attention because of these area variance situations that are occurring. So.
All right, some of the other requirements. The dwelling on the lot has been continuously occupied as a single-family detached dwelling for at least 10 years before filing of the application. Does that appear to be true, Ben? How old is the house?
95.
Okay. No physical changes have been made to the dwelling since the certificate of occupancy was issued. Now, I don't know what certificate of occupancy that refers to. If we're talking about the original 1995 one, I think there's an indication that there have been renovations, and some of them resulted in a violation notice by your office. How long ago was that?
That was...
2004, I think?
No, that was April 6th of 2018.
So I guess the question for you, and ultimately for the zoning board, is, was there a certificate of occupancy issued at that time?
No. So this is a illegal accessory apartment. So it's not a,
Right.
it's not a legal accessory
Right, well,
apartment.
okay, so it's not, that may be another issue for whether or not the equities of what Bonnie is calling for make sense. In other words, was there an intent to grandfather all of those that existed? But the language of the code leaves open, take a different example. In the year one, the house gets a certificate of occupancy for a single-family home. And then 5 years later, renovations are done to the house. And then 11 years after the house was built, somebody wants an accessory apartment permit. Well, it satisfies the 10-year provision, but you're ineligible for an accessory apartment unit if renovations have been done on the house since their certificate of occupancy has been issued. Which means that if you ever make changes to your house, you're never going to be eligible for an accessory apartment permit. Unless what the code provision was meant to say is, you start another 10-year clock when the certificate of occupancy or certificate of compliance is issued for the changes made to the dwelling. I don't know what.
Which section
Can
are
you
you
pause
referring
right
to?
there to, I'm just,
Yeah.
if you have a certificate of occupancy in year one, but you get an addition, you're saying that if you didn't get a certificate of occupancy for your addition, is that the
Well,
fine
that's true
point you're
here, they
making?
haven't gotten one.
So,
But when you look at the requirements, principles.
yeah, the language says, principal single-family detached dwelling shall have been lawfully constructed and used as a single-family detached dwelling
Yeah.
for at least 10 years prior to the date that an application is made for the creation of an accessory apartment. So this was intended where there wasn't going to be a new subdivision with all new homes that each of them already had an accessory apartment. This was intended to allow homes that had been in existence as a single-family detached dwelling for 10 years prior to the date of the application. Those homes could apply. So if this is a single-family detached dwelling that was constructed in 1995, and it's been nothing other than a single-family detached dwelling for 10 years, then I think that it's eligible.
I think that part's satisfied, but there's another provision that
Okay.
talks about no changes are permitted, no changes could have been made since the certificate of occupancy has been issued, and then none can be made in the future.
Unless, is that maybe more of a condition? I don't
Do
know.
they mean-
It's in the application form. I don't have the copy that had the reference to each section.
Do they mean changes of the home, like renovations, or they mean changes in the status of it as a of the home as a one-family detached dwelling?
Yeah, I have.
Because if it says detached dwelling and there are no changes, I think it means changes from that status, perhaps?
Yeah, I know there's an issue that if they have an accessory apartment and then there are changes made to the dwelling, that becomes a compliance issue, but I'm just trying to find the provision itself about what you're referring to, Mike. Because you're looking at the form, correct?
Yeah, but the form came from the
It
law.
was created from the law. There's no exterior changes or expansion?
Well, it's both since certificate of occupancy and none permitted in the future. I'm trying to find out where they are.
Yeah. There's no exterior changes or expansion which may alter its existing foundation, roof line, facade may be made to the principal single-family detached dwelling, except for the installation of an entrance to serve the accessory apartment. So these were intended to be within the dwelling, not in addition to the dwelling, which here, I don't know, it was
Would not
within the
change.
dwelling, correct?
Correct.
Right.
They were not changing the inside of the building. I mean, the outside of the building.
Correct.
It's just
There
the-
are no changes to
Just
the outside.
just
It was the
Just
interior.
Okay, so if there haven't been any outside, then I guess that's not a problem. So we're left only with the lot size issue.
I think it's just the lot size at this point.
And it's not just the lot size, it's the setbacks also.
Okay,
So.
They don't comply-
They do not comply.
To the setbacks.
So in general, to
Mhm.
that 40,000 square foot, that's not the only issue, because.
okay.
If you had a house that was built under the grandfather law,
Mhm.
under today's zoning, that grandfather law is no longer existing. So therefore, any house that you would need, with an accessory apartment, would still need area variances for setbacks.
Right, I don't recall that the new zoning for the zones changed the setback requirements. I'd have to look at that. The one area that I know that was changed, based on public comment and the town board's review, was lot coverage, impervious surface coverage.
No, but you're not understanding it. There was an existing provision for grandfathered lots.
Right,
Grandfathered lots were allowed to have 30-foot front, 15-foot side, 18-foot other side.
right.
And then 30-foot rear. Under today's zoning, even though they were under an old zoning section, if they fell under that grandfather law, they could go by that law instead of complying to the zoning. So a lot of these houses,
See-
even though they're 40,000 square feet lots, the zoning was different.
So that was dealing with non-complying lots where they didn't meet the standards for the district within which they were located.
It was, no.
So if
it
you
was
were
lots-
like-
It was lots that were approved prior to like 19,
Right,
whatever.
right, they're just existing lots that, let's say they're in the R40 district, they may be part of like a bungalow lake community, and in fact, they're only 10,000 square foot lots. So then that grandfathering provision, I think, was supposed to address that, although,
But does that grandfathering apply here? Because the
No, it doesn't apply
requirement
here.
Of the code
But-
is that to be eligible for an accessory apartment.
right, and it doesn't apply here,
Yeah.
because it wasn't
So they'll
intended
need a
to.
variance for those provisions.
Based
Right.
on the bulk table provided, they would need variances for not only the lot area, but also the rear yard and the lot coverage, based on the bulk table we got. So there's at least 3 bulk issues.
Okay. To bring them into compliance and allow them the accessory apartment.
Well, just to grant them the variance.
The variances
so
for
that
the
since
accessory.
they don't comply with the current code. And again, I'm just working off of Dave's submittal sheet.
Yep.
So I think that was interpretation you were looking for, David, as far as whether an area variance was needed. And you're positive about all the yards are shown and measured?
Yes.
Appropriately?
Absolutely.
All right, if the board would wish me to, I could send a letter to the zoning board referring it to them for the granting of those 3 variances, lot size, rear yard, and lot coverage.
Does anyone want to make any comments as part of the referral, or just simply refer to the ZBA and allow them to come to their determinations?
Yeah, we need to revisit this discussion just a little bit,
Okay.
because we've been before the board twice since May, this year, and this is the first time the other two issues are coming up. Okay, so how is this lot not complying with the setback requirements?
It doesn't meet the table, meet all bulk requirements applicable to a single-family detached dwelling as set forth in the Schedule of District Regulations for the zoning district in which it's located, and it doesn't meet those.
What zoning district are you in,
It
Dave?
meets,
You're in the RR1?
well, it meets
Yeah.
it meets the front yard requirements, it meets the side yard requirements. How is it not meeting the setbacks?
So-
I'm not talking about area of lot.
Rear-
Right.
setbacks.
The
So-
rear yard.
Rear yard is 60 feet.
I'm presuming your bulk table's correct. I'm working off of that. It's showing 51.47, where 60 is required.
Well, which is the front yard?
The front yard should be any yard which is fronting to the street.
Well, it's a corner.
But it's a corner lot.
It's a corner lot.
So it should have a front yard on the court, and then on, what's the other street that it's on?
Where the rear becomes the yard opposite the front.
You don't have more than one front yard on a lot.
No.
Is this Country Court here? Number 12? Correct?
It would be that one.
Here, I'll look.
It's a corner lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Harriman Heights becomes the front yard.
So this is a front yard. Is this also a
Well,
front yard?
even if,
Country Court would become the front yard.
well, Country Court is the front yard, we meet the setback for front yard. Front yard's
Front's
50
not the
feet.
problem, it's the rear.
Well,
I think the question is,
I think he's
what
saying
is what is the rear?
It's the.
Yeah, which is, if the rear is,
Country's
country's the
I believe it's
front,
the
then
yard
the rear
opposite
would
the
meet
front.
the standard.
well, not on a corner lot. I mean, the rear yard could be the intersection of Harriman Heights Road and Country Court.
I think we have to look at the corner.
And there we meet the setback requirement for 79.8 feet.
We were just going by your table here that said it didn't meet it.
So lot corner, a lot which has an interior angle of less than 135 degrees at the intersection of two street lines. Lot abutting upon a curved street shall be considered a corner lot if the tangents to the curve at the points of intersection of the side lot lines intersect at an interior angle of less than 135 degrees, which I will leave to Mark.
Yeah, but the question becomes, can you have more than one front yard under County Road
Right,
Code?
so let me check what the corner, because oftentimes, they're made for corner yards, indicate that both yards are to be front.
Front, yeah.
Right,
And
so let me check.
that's depending upon the particular zoning law.
Exactly, because some don't treat it that way.
Correct.
50 foot is here.
So those should be under supplemental bulk, which is chapter 11.
Because if this is the front, this is the rear. Okay. So front here, this one has to conform to 50 because it's on a corner lot.
By the way, we deal with undersized lots, under supplemental bulk requirements as well. All yards on corner lots and existing through lots abutting any street shall meet the requirements for front yard setbacks for the district in which it is located. On the effective date of the zoning chapter, through lots are not permitted. So,
At that point, you can have more than one front yard. So what you need to do, Dave, is correct your bulk table.
What's that section, Bob?
it's section 5739B.
On your bulk table, you indicate a rear yard setback of 60. What you should say is NA, because there is no rear yard for this lot. And then for the front yard setback, you would show two front yard setbacks, the 51 and the 51.3, both of which are over the front yard of 50. So that necessary variance goes away. You still have the lot coverage issue.
Well, no, which I agree with. I mean, we had this discussion in September,
Okay.
when we submitted the building department's interpretation of the side of the yards. So I'm amiss that even setbacks are becoming another discussion. Setbacks shouldn't even be a discussion anymore at this point.
I'm just going by your plan.
But in my plan, I referenced the building department's decision. The asterisk, building department has confirmed compliance with the zoning code on 9/12/2018. No variance required. I say it right there. And we referenced this decision So setbacks should, I
For
mean,
setbacks.
Yeah, for setbacks.
Right, right.
I'm talking area, I'm
Okay.
talking setbacks. So I'm trying to get this, I'd like to keep the project progressing forward.
Sure.
And so to have the conversation revert back to something that we already determined as compliant is disheartening.
Right. Well, I think we just
So,
want to make sure that we
yeah.
understand if you need a variance, what they are. I know we were all aware you needed the lot area variance.
Well, that was.
That we were aware of.
Last meeting, that was left as an unknown. That's
Okay.
why I believe the building inspector was asked to come
Okay.
to give a comment about that.
Okay.
Do we agree you need the lot coverage as well? Or is that still?
The lot coverage meets the setback requirements. I mean, the zoning requirements.
But it says 15 is required and 18 provided. So again, that's 3% over what the code allows. Again, I'm just going by your
Oh,
plan.
no, you know what? Yes, that is correct. My mistake.
All right, so,
We do have 18% lot coverage.
so you need 2 variances. And again, just rather than refer to see building department notes, the plan should clearly indicate that you have 2 front yards and no rear yard. So under the provided for rear yard, say NA,
That's fine.
and then just show 2 front yard setbacks, 51 and 51.3, both of which will be complying for the 50 required. So that'll make that go away.
We
And that
agree.
doesn't even need an interpretation, it's just,
That's fine.
that's the code reads, that's the code reads.
That's fine.
Okay, so my letter will refer to the 2 variances in lot size and lot coverage.
So, Ben, are there any, you would be in agreement with that as far as the variances? Okay. So getting back, I had asked the board members whether they felt, whether you just want to refer this and let the ZBA make the determination, or do you have any comments that you want to relay to the ZBA?
Not so much for the ZBA, but this is definitely a legislative problem that should probably be tackled first, more or less on a committee level with us, and then presented to the town board for them to make a final decision on.
Yep.
Because this would definitely present a problem for someone trying to buy or sell a house, because as Mike and Mark said, most of the town of Monroe is built on a builder's acre,
Right,
and no bank in their right mind would issue a mortgage to someone
right.
who's trying to buy or sell.
So, as I had said, we brought it up to the town board. If they want to create a local law, they would forward their law proposed to us so that we could then make a recommendation to them.
Okay, so they would.
So
come
we're
from
part of the
them.
process.
Okay, so the proposed legislation would come from the town board, not us.
And then we can make recommendations to the town board,
Well,
certainly.
yeah, and that's part of the process.
They can also just refer it to us as well, either way.
Either, all right.
Okay. Any other
I
comments?
just want to go over a couple of
Sure.
things, because I'm getting a little lost in all the topics we're talking about. Number one is, I understand that the footprint of the house has not changed at all.
Correct.
Okay. And that if, did the building department confirm compliance with the zoning, that no variance was required?
For,
The 9th, September 12th, 2018, is there compliance with the zoning code?
no, not as of right now. We just went over that.
Okay, and if we're talking about the 10-year, the current resident has been in the house for 10 years.
The
The current
resident,
resident, no.
It's been a
That's not-
single-family home for 10
Right.
years.
Yeah, that's not a
That's
question. It's the CO.
Okay.
right, it has to have been the single-family detached for 10 years.
They had to have had a CO for 10 years.
And the septic system supports having a 5th bedroom?
That would be my determination, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a question, I don't recall the status. I believe, Dave, you are using the old sanitary system design, which showed 5 bedrooms. We
Correct.
just need to confirm that there are not more than 5 bedrooms. And make sure on the application, too, it indicates that there is private sewer, because at one point it said public sewer in some portion of the submittal. There was a conflict somewhere. At this point, it's my understanding
I'll
that
look-
it is
It's septic, in fact.
septic.
One of the comments we had to satisfy was re-perk it, to make sure that the design was consistent with the use. So that was one of your earlier comments, and we satisfied that.
Well, yes and no. You re-perked it, but I asked, what is the record design for the building? There was, and Mike might be able to jump in here. We've got a single-family residence that has a design sanitary system on record by a professional for that property. I don't know that a perk test in 2018 supersedes the design that's on file with the town. Either the system has a particular capacity or it doesn't. I don't know that doing a perk test 12 years after the system was designed redesigns the system.
Well, we didn't redesign the system, we didn't amend the system at all. We took the existing system that's referenced by Lankin Tully, their original design back in '93. We confirmed that design, we confirmed the perk rates, and we gave the test results up there to show that it could handle the 5 bedrooms. We're not amending.
My question is, you're saying Lankin Tully did the original design?
Yeah, note number 3.
And how many bedrooms total are in the house as it's proposed with the accessory apartment?
5.
And what was Lankin Tully's design for how many bedrooms?
Not sure, and I'm
That's
not-
very pertinent.
Well,
If it's a
not-
if it's a 4-bedroom design,
Okay.
I don't know how we're gonna handle a record 4-bedroom design that's on record, and then alter that from 4-bedroom to 5-bedroom merely with doing a single perk test.
Well,
Yeah,
because.
do you know
the-
how many linear feet the
Yeah,
Seafield
because
is?
the 8 rows of 50 feet at the perk that we have satisfies a 5-bedroom design.
Then we need, the requirement of the code is proof certified by a New York State licensed professional engineer that adequate sewage disposal facilities are or will be provided.
We did. Design professional. We confirmed it. I witnessed it. I mean, the design as it stands right now satisfies the code regarding a 5-bedroom house.
I'm sorry, but the engineer designed a 4-bedroom house, but built an oversized septic system for expansion? I mean, that's what I'm being led to believe or
I haven't
understand.
seen the original design, that's what I think is very pertinent for us to know what the original design criteria was.
David, this is just a difficulty with all the town records, I guess. Was there an original subdivision plan that you had for Country Court that showed what the original design was?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Actually, I think we submitted it along with our last letter, because I have it right here.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it's wrong, I just haven't seen it.
Okay.
And just so the board knows, in most septic systems, there is a 50% expansion of area reserved on every lot. So if a homeowner wants to expand his septic system for additional bedrooms, you do have that capability. And of course, it has to be engineered by a design professional, but there is space on the lot for expansion.
Well, I think that would be a question, getting to the septic system. Do they need, as a condition of the accessory apartment, to expand, or is what has been designed already been designed with the laterals and all the other things that are needed to accommodate a 5-bedroom dwelling, which is what,
That's what
I
I'm
think Mark is
asking.
asking.
My concern, and it's a concern that I have not run into in my several years of doing this, is if you have a record design that uses a 30-minute perk, and 15 years later, somebody comes in and says, I can add 2 more bedrooms because I re-perked it, and it's not 30 minutes anymore, it's 20 minutes now. Well, we all know the soil didn't change. It didn't get better while it was sitting there. That puts me in a very difficult situation in suggesting to the board that either the original design was way over-designed, they just rounded up the perk rate, but I'd like to have the data, because we want to avoid having a sanitary system failure is the long and short of it.
Without question. I mean, and it was one of your comments from I think our second meeting back in September, and we responded to that.
But I haven't seen the design, so that you did not respond with. So I have not seen the original design.
And is it expansion used for expansion of number of bedrooms, or is that for emergency?
Normally, it's intended if the septic system has any operational problems, that you have the ability to expand without encroaching into areas, separations to other wells or other adjoiners. Yeah, I've seen it used for expansions for adding a bedroom. So that, I believe, is not restricted.
So it seems that the applicant requires variances, so we can send them off for the variances, and Mike will prepare the letter. In the meantime, ultimately, you have to come back before the board. So in the interim, the septic system can get resolved as
Yeah,
far as the review.
That's not a problem.
We did receive, and I provided to everybody, the Orange County Department of Planning GML review, which is a local determination, so there's no need to supersede their determination. The second comment, I think we'll need to check out. They indicate the town should ensure that these proposed spaces do not encroach on the wetlands on or adjacent to the project site. Are there wetlands on the, if you're looking at the house on the left-hand side, I have the image up here, and I see there's sort of a, I don't know if this area is wetland or not. And where were you thinking of expanding the parking area?
Yeah, just the parking area to accommodate the parking.
The additional parking? So that would be, if I'm looking at the house, you're expanding it to the left?
Correct.
Okay. Is there some kind of shed, or, almost looks like that on this map?
There is a shed right next to the 2 new parking spaces.
Okay, so the new parking spaces are between the shed and,
Country court.
okay. So we'll just need to make sure they're not going to encroach on anything there. It doesn't appear that they will, but maybe Mark, someone can take a quick look at it. And the bottom line is, it's not I mean, as far as the GML is concerned, it doesn't affect the GML review, but we just want to make sure, you know, because we also have a wetland permit law, so
Sure.
we want to avoid the wetlands.
Yeah, no, I agree, of course. We did have it surveyed. Nothing had come up in the survey.
Okay.
So I'll have that verified by the surveyor.
All right. Any other questions from the board as far as the process? Mark, Mike, nothing? Dave?
No.
Okay. Ben? Nothing? All right. So I think at this time, we'll refer you over to the ZBA. We'll resolve the septic issue. Just button up, looking at the wetlands, make sure there's, you know, nothing being encroached upon. And then you can come back before the board, and there is no public hearing required, so, you know, at such time that you come back, if the septic system is all addressed, you know, perhaps we can get to a resolution. Is the board in general, if the applicant receives its variances, are you generally okay with the accessory apartment in this dwelling? Yes?
I don't have any qualms
Okay.
upon, once it goes to the ZBA process.
Okay.
Gotta go through that.
Anybody? Any issues? All right, so I think if we get a favorable ZBA decision as far as the variances, then I would ask Mike, upon that happening, to draft up a resolution so that we can approve the accessory apartment. Just so we start planning in advance. Although I know that the variance process will require a public hearing, so it may take a couple meetings, but,
Yeah,
all right.
without question. Sure.
Anything else?
David, the first
Dave?
meeting for the ZBA is tentatively set for January 22nd. Nothing's
What
been
is the
confirmed.
submission date?
Off the top of my head, I think it's January 8th, but I'll know more when I go. I don't have a ZBA calendar for next year with me. But I will double check and send it to you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be there.
I wish it was tonight. I would have brought it with me. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
And which project is it that you thought you wished you had brought with you? Is it which subdivision?
Lakes Road subdivision.
No, it was no.
I wonder if I have it here.
Well, Bonnie, we redesigned it
Oh,
according
okay.
to the last meeting, the
Okay.
comments from the last
Okay.
meeting. So what we'll be presenting is
Is gonna
not
be different.
completely, but it's more defined and drafted out, so
Okay,
it's going to warrant a little discussion.
okay, very good. Thank you. Ben, did you have any other comments or you wanted to raise as far as accessory apartments and regulations and anything else we should be aware of in your review of the accessory apartments and the law, what might need to be revised?
Yeah, I made a presentation to the board, to the town board at the last town board meeting, and there was quite a bit of issues that I brought up in regards to setbacks, areas, and I can't remember exactly what it is, but I put it all in an email. I can email it to you guys so you guys are aware of it.
Okay.
Yes, please.
That'd be great, because I know Jeff actually wanted to be here, because I think he had listened in on the presentation, and he wanted the opportunity for the planning board to discuss it, so if you could, then we'll take that
Yeah, I will
up.
forward it over to the board so so you guys can see it also. And I think it's pretty much everything that I had mentioned to the board is on there, so,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I think we'll begin with our next applicant. And Ben, thanks for showing up tonight.
Kingsville?
So Kingsville Synagogue, is that you, David? Okay.
Links for everything in here. Is this the old one? I don't have
Thanks a lot.
Maybe it's because you missed the last meeting.
Kingsville.
And they stuck it in.
I'm joking.
Make it look official.
Yes, as it zooms in on
So, why don't you give us an overview of where things are? And I think Mark has done a review, and I'm just going to get on over to where this property is in the meantime. So you want to start off?
Absolutely. We reviewed and addressed all of your comments from the last meeting, including providing an updated survey to identify all the items associated with this piece of property. So we did that. We increased the landscaping along the parking area that would be provided. We confirmed the amount of parking spaces, and I'm hoping that we can proceed with 239 referrals and public hearing.
So, Mark, have you had an opportunity to review the
Yeah,
resubmitted plans?
I've got notes that I can go over.
Okay.
Dave's absolutely right. It meets the bulk table requirements, and they did have a new survey performed, which now gives us a good base plan to reference. The real hurdle is 5713Q, the place of worship requirements. And I'll preface the next several comments with the asterisk that all of the requirements have a provision where the planning board can waive any non-New York State Code requirements to the extent necessary so that it doesn't place a substantial burden on the religious exercise and so on. So there are decisions that would need to be made by the board as to where waivers are reasonable and appropriate. And the issues involved are that, one, there has to be screening that screens the structures and parking from all adjacent properties by evergreens, sufficient height and diameter to substantially eliminate noise and traffic, with the screening not less than 25 foot. They've provided probably 6 or 8 evergreens on one corner of the parking lot. Nothing, and again, I don't know the site for existing vegetation, but there's no proposed screening that deals with the entire building and probably 80% of the parking area. So you'll need to decide if what's there is appropriate. That might involve a field visit to determine if maybe that's the only weak area of existing vegetation where they need to supplement it. But the code is quite clear as to what's required unless you waive it. There are also,
Could we go point for point, or?
It's up to the chairwoman.
Bonnie, do you want to go point for point? Or you want to go through all of the comments?
Why don't we go through all and then
Okay.
you can respond?
Okay.
The parking requirements in the code are based on peak attendance, and that's fine, but I believe there should also be an allowance for the residential. I believe there's still a residential component of the structure.
Yes.
So you need to make sure there's parking that addresses both the residential and the religious use. So that isn't, I don't think, fully addressed. Secondly, the parking area is shown, but there's no layout. There's no parking spaces depicted. There's no indication of where you're developing how many spaces. So that needs to be added to the drawings. There's a note asking for a waiver for fixed seating relative to the code. The code requires that it be accessed via a major collector road in the town of Monroe. In this particular case, it's really accessed from Kingsville Drive in the village of South Blooming Grove. And that clearly isn't a major collector, so that'll be another waiver that you'll have to consider.
I want to bring up something that was told to me by South Blooming Grove with regard to this lot, with regard to access. But we'll get to that when you're done.
The other one is an interpretation. It's about the structures in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood, similar design aesthetic. I don't have any information on that, but again, that's a board assessment that you need to make sure you consider. It indicates that no parking or loading is permitted between the structure and any street line. Here, the parking is absolutely in the front yard between the building and the access road. So that's another waiver you'll have to consider if it's appropriate. And it requires that there be a single-family detached dwelling and the owner or tenant must reside in the site. Although Dave's cover letter provides some information, the board historically has always asked for narratives that are attached to approval resolutions. We have no separate narrative.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a procedural thing they normally do. So that would help as part of the description. So again, all those are relative to 5713Q. Some other things that would help the board, I believe, is the vicinity map, maybe darken up the background information because it's all burned out in the printing. It would be beneficial to have the narrative give full information about the residents and number of bedrooms and whatever information relative to the repurposing of the lower level. I'm not quite sure, looking at the plan, why the parking area has some areas showing that it's paved, or pavers. Some areas are saying the pavers are going to be removed, and then some areas are having gravel extensions made. But again, there's no layout for the parking. So just tighten up, if you can, explaining how you're creating parking, how many spaces are being put in, the dimensions of the spaces, so that we know that they are consistent with the town code. Sanitary system, again, it'd be good to have a copy of the original design for the sanitary system as a reference, because that, to me, is the record before the town as to what the existing structure is designed with its sanitary system to handle. I understand that you have perk tests and information here, but again, the record, I run into a quandary as, what do we go by? the PE or licensed registered architect who prepared the original design, or subsequent perk tests to quasi redesign the system, and I'm confused on that one. I've not run into doing new perks and overriding prior designs.
I think if there's a current certification by a licensed professional as to adequacy, at least that was the language of the accessory apartment, that would be satisfactory. But the rest of it is your judgment.
Yeah,
Call.
so at minimum, I'd want to have a copy of the original design and then work from there forward. Building areas, I think we should get building areas on the plan. Plan SP1 references drawings A2 and A3, but the drawings only have A1. So again, there might be more drawings floating around for construction purposes, but if they're not part of the planning board submittal, don't reference them. I'm not quite sure if the code, and I'll have to check it more, it's just a note I have here, is whether or not the intent for the religious uses is to have finished paved parking areas as are consistent with site plans, or if there are some other alternatives accepted, because this has really ended up being pavers and gravel with no delineation, so I think that's got to be nailed down. There's a chain link fence out front. It's not quite clear how big the gate is, if there's a gate from Kingsville, and if the gate is big enough for emergency vehicle access. Because now that you're going to have, let's call it the general public there, rather than just the residents, if a fire truck or an ambulance or other emergency services need to get in, the gate's got to be big enough to accommodate the response. So that is an open issue. So, and I don't know what referrals, if any, are needed to the village of South Blooming Grove other than 239, if the access is going to be off of their road for a Town of Monroe site plan.
Right.
So it's a kind of an interesting one as well.
I actually asked Noreen to forward it to the Village of South Blooming Grove for other reasons, which we can get into. But I think first, David, do you want to respond to?
Actually, now that Mark has listed his comments, can we get a copy of that?
Sure.
Yeah, these are just work session notes, but if, depending on what the board does with meetings,
If the
I'll
board's
get them
agreeable,
copied.
Yeah.
because then we could address them in our next cover letter.
Okay.
If we have an outline to work off of.
I'd rather not have you address things in cover letters. I'd rather have you address things on plans, because when the board approves something, they don't stamp your cover letter approved. But we should be on the plan.
But we will need a narrative. And
Yeah,
for instance, if you're looking for a waiver in the peak parking requirement, your narrative has to explain when the services are held, how people get there, how many people are in attendance, et cetera.
We have no problem with that, and of course, we would do both. We would provide a cover letter, we would edit the plans, note it on the revision date. That's not an issue, not a problem, standard operating procedure. Initially, we can address everything we've heard so far. It's not a concern. The landscaping, we provided as much as we can in the area that's noted. Reason why we didn't provide any on the additional side is because of the slope of the land and existing vegetation. It's trees, actually. It's pretty well screened off.
And as I said, I'm not criticizing, I just don't have enough information to tell where else it might be needed. That's a board call as well.
That's not a problem. The parking layout, that's something we'd like to discuss a little further. Obviously, we provided the room associated for the cars. We didn't provide a line striping detail or something along those lines. I think that's a detail that we can talk about further. Would line striping be needed? I'm not sure. The owner, I'll talk to the owner further about extending the pavers across as opposed to just extending the parking with gravel. It's something I could discuss further with the owner. The other items are okay. We'd rather get comments from, if we're going to send it out, I'd rather get those comments in.
So,
Question for the board. If this particular type of use doesn't require, let's call it full-blown parking lot development, would, number one, would gravel be acceptable, and could we use the wheel stop approach to delineate the space as long as the spacing of the wheel stops and the dimension of the improved area meets the code requirements for a parking space and back out.
From my perspective, if it's less impervious surface coverage, I don't have issue with it. Although this is for cars, you know, I'm also trying to think what the zoning actually says, if it asks for macadam, or does it say
I didn't see
stabilized
reference for
surface?
this, and I look at this pretty much as an accessory use
Right.
in a single-family residential, and personally, I don't like adding paved parking
Right.
lots to residential uses when there's accessory, be it a home professional office or this religious use. You hate to see a full-blown parking lot be constructed outside of a residence, and it no longer looks like a residence. So sometimes gravel with wheel stops serves the function. If we make the gravel area large enough, you got something to aim for with the wheel stop, and you hope for the best at that point.
I think whether paved parking is a requirement of the site plan article or not, you have the same waiver authority under the site plan procedure articles as you do for special permit approval, so you can waive it in any event for the reasons Mark articulated.
So I asked the question only so that when Dave and I have to talk about it, I might have some feedback from the board if I've got that flexibility.
Well, I think also to Mike's point, you know, understanding what the size of the congregation is, how many services are, what kind of vehicle traffic, I think that kind of will help us decide what's appropriate, because if it's a low traffic loading, you know, and you're not worried about dust, you're not worried about divots, you're not worried about people getting out of their cars and tripping because because of uneven surfaces, you know.
So so I think a good question is this a non-residential use or a residential use? And it's a little both. Here it says accessory non-residential parking areas and off-street loading truck loading spaces shall be suitably paved, drained, and lighted, and appropriately planted and fenced. But again,
Section what?
that's section 5751M. So you kind of just step back, and I missed a couple meetings, so I don't know if you did present as far as what's proposed, but the rabbi is living in the residence in this instance?
Correct.
Okay. And you had the congregation is going to be 18?
As a max, yes.
Okay, and
In
that,
attendance.
so they'll generally be walking to,
It's the this family lives in the surrounding houses. They'll be walking there for their services.
because I think in our special use requirements, we also had something that was like public assembly, or it was a little different than a synagogue or a place of worship. And because this has a residence, I don't know if this doesn't fall within that alternative special use. I shouldn't say alternative, a different special use. So I'm just checking. Because we have another special use that actually also deals probably more with residential places of worship. The other thing I'd like to mention is that anything other than a single-family detached dwelling, if there's a special use, the planning board has architectural review authority over it. So I don't know that you've submitted any kind of photos or information.
I can.
Yeah.
We provided the A1 plan showing the,
Okay,
Gathering place.
gathering place. So,
so this would fall under section 5713?
so.
Either Q or perhaps J.
It's either Q or J, and I'm just trying to see where you fit.
Sure.
So we have something called a gathering place, and it said any single-family detached dwelling may be used as a gathering place. The owner or the tenant consisting of an individual or family must reside on the site. Lot size shall conform to the requirements of the zone in which it's located. Gathering places must comply with all applicable sections of the New York State Uniform Code. And the New York State Uniform Code will be used to determine potential maximum occupancy limits. Occupancy will be determined upon review of the narrative provided with the special permit application. Narrative shall include general description of the proposed uses, including the days and times of operation. In addition, a floor plan shall be provided indicating the location of the areas where assembly will occur and providing the additional information as required in the then current New York State Uniform Code. Plans prepared by New York State licensed design professional. Special permit remains in effect for 1 year, renewed upon expiration or deemed expired. And that's really just a building inspector. Parking, applicant will first maximize parking spaces on site. Applicant may count spaces available in driveways within 300 feet of the gathering site. Minimum effective lighting to permit safe operation. Comply with seeker. And I think, I need to look at the definition because I also think there's a maximum capacity for a gathering place. So it's a place of assembly allowed by special permit in a residential district for organizations or loose affiliations of like-minded people regularly meeting to plan or conduct organization functions or other organized activities within habitable areas of a single-family detached dwelling, subordinate to its use as a single-family detached dwelling. Regular meeting means 1 or more times per month. Maximum size will be governed by uniform code. Area of assembly shall not occupy more than 30% of the total square footage of the residence, excluding bedrooms, quarters, bathrooms, and kitchens as further defined in the New York State Uniform Code. Garages and cellars are not considered habitable space. And then, under no circumstances may the number of persons exceed 50. And so, I'm raising, is this the special use under which this should fall, or is a place of worship? Because this is a house, and within the house, he's having services.
Correct.
Right? It's not a situation where it's the entire structure is a synagogue. A portion of his house is being used.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's less than 30% of the total floor area?
Correct.
It might be J then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did our zoning code analysis under 13Q. With its 13 points, but if it's going to be under J.
Because a place of worship, a structure or place in which worship, ceremonies, rituals, and education pertaining to a particular system of belief are held. Place of worship may include clergy offices, offices of the place of worship, meeting rooms, social halls, clergy or caretaker residence, daycare, and recreation area. So it does talk about residence, but I think they mean, where you have a place of worship and then there's like a separate residence on the site. So I'm believing this is probably falling more within a gathering place.
Yep.
So I think if that's the case, then we just need to make sure that everything complies with uniform code and then with whatever standards are under that special use permit. For architectural review, since it's an existing building, I think first submit just photos of what it looks like. We should have some kind of floor plan that documents 30% or whatever that requirement is for the gathering place. You have that?
Yeah, we provide that on A1.
Okay.
And Dave, it looks like many of the waivers that you would need under Q are not even applicable for J. So it would seem to be an easier compliance.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
did you submit an EAF?
I'm sure we did.
I don't remember the original application.
Okay.
I don't carry original.
Yeah.
How big is the structure?
You mean its entirety, in its
Yeah.
entirety? Definitely
It's
over
more than
3,000.
4,000.
Oh, over 4,000 square feet. Sure.
I wonder if there's, maybe look at that information. So I want to get to the access question. I was told that at some point in time, this might have been approved previously as a synagogue or previously, I don't know, as a home, and that the home was required to get access out to Mountain Road, or County Route 44. I forget if it's Seven Springs or Mountain Road at that point. So this is the dwelling here, I think. So this is, am I in the right place, or no? here we are, Kingsville. So I was told that there's some kind of easement and that at some point Monroe had required that the dwelling that's there get out to Monroe. I don't know why. It had to do something with South Blooming Grove as well, which is why I forwarded the package to them. And I thought I had seen on the aerial that there was some kind of driveway going from Kingsville to, like a road connection, a driveway connection.
There's no driveway connection, but on the survey, updated survey that was performed, it shows a macadam walk going through the property.
Trying to find a more recent aerial here. Okay, here's the house. So I see the macadam walk in here. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. I think we just need to research that a little as far as, again, past approvals for Monroe and South Blooming Grove. This is what I was told. The other thing is that I think this trash, and maybe you talked about it already, the trash area, the dumpster area, I think is within the right-of-way for the road. And so that really needs to be probably relocated outside of the right-of-way. I don't know if there are any other encroachments that are within the public right-of-way, but that's something that South Blooming Grove needs to weigh in on because it's not the town of Monroe's right-of-way.
Absolutely.
So I think whatever action the Town of Monroe Planning Board would take would probably be conditioned on if they have certain requirements or they have certain changes that need to be made that relate to the access going out to that the road or any encroachments, then we're going to need to consider that. So again, I did ask Noreen to forward it to move the process along to find out if there's anything they have in the records.
Looks as if the fence is encroaching into the right-of-way as well.
Right. I will say that I had been there before one of the last meetings, and I saw and this wasn't during services or anything, it was just an off day, about 4 cars were parked kind of at the end of the cul-de-sac and not onto the property. So I think we need to really consider what is the parking demand that they have, because maybe there's comings and goings aside from the day-to-day teaching. So I just want to make sure that the full complement of parking is provided for however many cars may be visiting the site. What do we have right now as far as parking capacity?
4.
4, okay. So we should take a look at that. Again, I mentioned architectural review, so you'll get us photos. This will require GML review. I would suggest that we do coordinated review, although I don't know that there are that many involved agencies, possibly with the exception of South Blooming Grove. And I'm not sure how they're involved, other than maybe for access.
The DPW, I would think, right?
DPW for review of the curb cut. I don't think there's a DEC permit. I don't think there's any soil erosion, sediment control needs. You're not over an acre disturbance. There's no DEC. But I would like to, again, just coordinate with South Blooming Grove. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that the planning board declare its intent to be lead agency for this proposed action.
Bonnie, are you able to on that, just to show where the village line is?
The village here, I can probably, I think it's following the property lines generally. This is going to be a little off with the layers, but I think it's following that lot line.
So Kingsville Drive is not a town road?
No, it's South Blooming Grove. And the lot is Monroe.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we'll circulate for lead agency. We'll just make sure the EAF is accurate, that it doesn't need to be updated. It may need to if we're calling this a gathering place now.
Yes.
So actually, perhaps you can just send us an updated EAF so Noreen can get that out. I think for now, we can work with the plans that we have to circulate for lead agency.
Yes.
Mike or Mark, do you think there's anything additional that needs to be shown? Should we wait and hold off for GML review, or do you think it's okay to send it at this point?
It may be beneficial to have the parking issues resolved.
Okay,
I'm sure the county will pick up on that, so it's better that they see what's actually proposed.
okay. So we'll do our circulation from a seeker perspective. Again, we've already forwarded the plans. Just for disclosure, I do represent South Blooming Grove as the planning consultant, so needless to say, I would recuse myself from being involved in anything that they may review over there, since we're reviewing it here. Any other comments? No? No. Mark or Mike, anything else you want to add?
Not this time.
Dave?
I would just like to get the list of comments, so it's something to work over.
Okay,
From Mark or Noreen or yourself,
okay,
so that we're all working off of the same agenda.
yes,
That'd be great.
okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Sherry Tor. Good evening.
Good evening.
Didn't we approve this already? Good night.
We were close.
We were close, but not there yet? Okay.
We redelineated our wetland boundary.
Oh, okay.
They submitted their plans, and there's nobody doing it. I'm just surprised.
I'm sending them an email right now. All right. Nope. Sent it.
All right,
Okay, sorry for the,
no problem. Good evening, John Queenan from Lincoln Tully for the record, engineer for the applicant, Sherry Torr. Also here with me is Mr. Isaac Walter, Sherry Torr's representative. We're back before you with an amended site plan to the Sherry Torr school property for the construction of 2 swimming pools, I'll say located in the southern portion of the site. We were before the board several meetings, September, October, going over the plan design. We had last left off is there was an old wetland boundary that was south of the swimming pool site, and it was requested that we get that boundary redelineated just to ensure that our development wasn't encroaching upon that. We did that. That is now listed on this plan. They did a portion of the wetland boundary. We had Ecological Solutions walk that with the DEC, and they did a piece of that, and that's what's shown on this plan.
is that Jim Bates?
Mike Nowicki.
Mike Nowicki, okay.
So you'll see in the aerial location, that's where the new buffer and boundary is, and they only delineated that length.
And you said this was flagged with DEC present?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Do we have, are they going to issue any kind of,
They're gonna, I sent them out for,
Validation?
for
Okay.
signature. I have not gotten it back yet.
okay.
Some of the other comments that we did address as we were going through the work session, Mark had some comments about, access, bollards along the front. So we added the bollards along the front for traffic protection. I think we cleaned up some of the internal, putting the fencing around, showing gates, showing access for maintenance. We added a crosswalk to get from the school to the pools. So I think at this point in time, we're pretty far along with this. So we're back before you mainly because we got that wetland boundary redelineated.
The bollards, what kind of bollards are they?
Concrete.
Concrete? Are they black, or can they be black?
I guess.
They're just less
normally-
obtrusive if
Yeah,
they're-
normally you want to
I've
see
seen them almost like
them.
black vinyl coated.
You could, well, you basically put the concrete bollard and then you put a sleeve over it, so most of them are just plastic sleeves that go over it.
Yeah, but generally
But
you want to
you
have
wanna
some
see
type of
them.
reflective band
Yeah.
on them, just
Okay.
for safety.
Okay.
But otherwise, they could be disguised a bit.
Disguised a little bit.
If you want.
Yeah, I'd like to see the black vinyl.
Okay. Yeah, I think we were ready for a resolution. We did a short EAF, and at the last, it was the DEC wetland that had come up at the last moment.
Okay. Do we have a resolution yet or not yet?
Yeah, well, there was one sent to you all in October.
Okay, it was a while, but,
Work from that, we had it to form that night.
so, we have another meeting this coming Tuesday, right?
Yes.
So why don't we just get it out, and for Tuesday, we could actually do the resolution. So we won't do it this evening, and then Mike can catch up if there are any other additional conditions. I think, the black vinyl we would add. Another condition I would add is that you'll provide the validation signature for the wetland.
Sure.
And then any others that Mark or the planning board members would have.
Just that affidavit
Which affidavit?
from DEC.
Okay, or the validation,
Wetland.
wetland, okay.
All right, let's go with those. So there was some, I had to go to. All right, let's go.
Does the applicant have a copy of these?
You have pictures of your friend? I emailed them to
He
you
emailed.
today.
Thank you.
I don't see anything
This
from
actually we
Department
have
of
at
Health.
the Glenwood School, we have this fencing.
I have my copy, I have another one.
All right, so we received approval of plans for Sherry Torres Swimming Pool. No attempt has been made by this office to check the design with respect to the structural safety of the pool and appurtenances, nor the hydraulics of the piping system, which your engineer's report indicates has been designed together with the pumping equipment. Is that something we've looked at, or we would normally look at that?
Structural would be part of what's submitted to Ben.
Okay,
As far as the hydraulics for the pumping system, I don't know that that is reviewed by anyone other than the owner when they hire the company to prepare the systems.
all right, so urge that the pool be constructed in conformity with the accepted plans, recommend that the services of your engineer be retained to supervise the construction, so we can consider those for conditions. Prior to use, certificates shall be prepared and signed by a professional engineer or architect licensed to practice, stating the pool and appurtenances have been constructed in accordance with approved plans and specifications. And these are all actually requirements from Department of Health. You have to send the plans into Department of Health. I'm just trying to see if there's any other conditions that we should incorporate into ours, or should we just state that
I'll incorporate all of them.
all of them, okay. So that incorporated into our approval will be the conditions set forth in the Department of Health.
Basically, before we
approval.
can start using the pool, they're coming down to make inspection. So they give a sign off.
Okay.
Ben
When
is
you-
not going to issue CO till we have the sign off from them.
And when do you plan on starting construction?
Once the winter is off.
Okay.
But maybe the retaining wall we're going to start doing.
Okay. You won't be swimming yet. Okay.
You got a heater there?
So I think unless anybody has questions, then we will review a resolution on Tuesday
Okay.
and take action then.
There's 3 cleanups on the plans.
Okay?
Minor comments still. There's a note next to the pump station up near the existing building, says C note 3, but I don't think there's a note 3 that goes along with it. So just, John, if you could see where that note should be and maybe renumber it if you add one. The PVC privacy fence that the board has seen and asked for, there's a note on the retaining wall detail that says future fence. So change that future fence to the same PVC privacy fence that it's called every place else. Again, minor correction.
The PVC privacy fence is is it like a stockade looking fence?
That's
That's the fence.
You've got the
That's
photos?
one.
I have not seen the photos. It's depicted on the plan, in plan view, but I don't know that there's any detail on the plan, and there should be, for the actual fence. Again, the planning board doesn't stamp Xerox copies that are emailed to it, so it should be added to the plans.
I didn't know what they wanted to put in.
No, exactly, you didn't know last time either.
Oh, okay.
Neither did I. So
So,
if you could just incorporate this into the, and I don't see a PVC vinyl stockade fence here.
It's not PVC.
that looks like it's chain link with
It's a
those
cardigan.
meshy green. Are we talking about this?
No,
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 the tan and red
The tan and red?
Yeah,
wall, yes.
It's a wall.
That's,
10
yeah.
feet tall.
That's, what,
that's by the Glenwood School. We have that. We have a pool by the Glenwood School, and that's.
You see that from 17?
what's the
What is
height?
it? Is it like a panelized?
It's a corrugating stuff,
Yeah, no.
I believe it's corrugated.
metal.
Well, first of all, I don't know that we don't have a fence limit, height-wise. We may, I mean, I know that pools have to be fenced in general, but as far
But
as,
in our community, it's not allowed to look in the pool, so we're trying to make a high fence.
right. And I appreciate that. I just don't know if our standards say that they have to be 6 foot, which should still be okay for you. And I think we'd want something not
45-3.
45 dash, or 57?
Well,
Oh,
there's
45?
Fencing requirements in 45-3, specifically dealing with swimming pools.
Okay,
Then there's stuff in 57-40.
5740. Some 40.
Fence height. 5742 for commercial and non-commercial swimming pools.
Additional height limitations, yards, courts. A non-commercial swimming pool. Okay, there shall be a, okay, such pool shall be located in rear yard or side yard only, but not within a minimum required side yard.
Pointing at the pump station.
Commercial and non-commercial swimming pools.
Located in
Located,
accessory to a membership club, so it already applies.
right. It actually says, there's 2, there's one accessory to a membership and not accessory to a membership. Adjacent to every side and rear lot line within the rear yard area, there shall be a protective strip not less than 6 feet wide situated within the required yard, side and rear yards, suitable plant material. We're not in any required yards, are we? I hope not. After all this, I don't think so. No, because the lot extends. the side yard is?
The side yard here, I believe, we have 31 feet.
31, and what zoning district are we in?
This is the, we have 31 to the bathroom and 49 to the actual pool.
Your side yards are, you have central facilities, sewer facilities?
Yes.
Okay, so then it's 30 feet. Although any side yard should be 50 feet when lot is adjacent to a residential zone, which is not the case here. So it is 30, so you're good.
I held my breath for a second. 31, I figured somebody looked that up.
All right.
Is the retaining wall, the fence should be 30 feet off as well, that is what you're saying, if that's the way the code reads. So as long as that section of fence that goes up the,
So then everything,
Wall.
just not the building.
it's the fence has to meet that setback, so just make sure.
So I'll have to tuck it in as it goes
Because that
north
property
there.
line kind of skews in
Yes,
a little bit,
yes.
so that wall may have to be at a little different angle.
Yeah, in terms of
Yeah,
fence with the swimming pool, it just says no less than 4 feet in height, but it doesn't establish a maximum. And do you see anything else?
No.
Any search? Okay. So I think we should talk about the height. What is the height that you have over at the other school?
The the girls' school have 12 feet.
12 feet?
The reason why, because if we're doing the higher buildings with a few stories, we should not be able to see them.
So here, you're kind of far away from the building at this point. You're not that close to it.
Correct.
Can you do like a conventional 6-foot kind of decorative stockade fence?
6, can we set it, let's say, for 8? Instead of 12?
Does it have to be completely screened?
Yeah.
So you can't have, like the trellis at the top for 2
No, by
feet?
us, it needs to be a closed area.
Closed.
It's apart from religious,
Okay.
Can it be a stockade, alternating panel? And the reason I ask is that this is a wind wall. During heavy winds, a solid fence doesn't have any ability for the air to go through the fence.
we have it at the Glenwood for the past 3 years, and it's, whatever, nothing happened.
Right. Well, that's a metal though, right? It's metal?
It's metal, and we put it in concrete with cement.
Here you're mounting it to a retaining wall though. So I don't know that the retaining wall is designed to have that wind load imposed on it effectively like a sail.
In the back, we can definitely go with 6 foot.
You just want 8 from like the road?
Basically the 3 sides, but the back, I don't care, because
You could probably do,
actually in the
do it here.
Glenwood, we also doesn't have in the back a high fence.
Yeah, I think
Because in the back, I don't care, because no one sees from the back.
So we can, what maybe we can do is approve this subject to them coming back for the final fence detail?
Well,
Or does that affect engineering? Since it's on a
you
retaining
have
wall?
standard notes on this, John, for the wall?
Yeah, lower left hand.
Yeah, well then, if they have an 8-foot fence, the design they submit to Ben has to take into account the 8-foot fence.
Okay. I want to see what it looks like, because I don't
Let's
recall what we had submitted.
I think what we could do is,
Two
we could do an 8-foot fence along the front,
inside.
and then the one side that's exposed to the school.
Okay.
And then it basically keys into the bathroom buildings. So
Okay.
we don't need a fence there. And then on the other backside,
You can do 6 foot.
You can do 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
Can you send us or bring for Tuesday pictures of some fence ideas?
You don't like that, what I have in Glenwood?
And what does everybody think?
I mean, the different colors, not this color.
And these are metal, right?
Yeah.
And so that gets back to Mark. If these are metal panels, is there anything additional that needs to be done?
No, it'll be part of the structural review that has to be submitted to Ben as per the retaining wall notes, because the fence is embedded in, I believe, all cases, to the retaining wall.
The corrugated metal, is it painted, or is it like there's a finish on it already?
It's a finish on it.
Already. I don't know, what does everybody think?
But on the retaining wall itself, I don't need to put that. I can put a different one.
I was just gonna say, there's two fences going here. One is the one on top of the retaining wall. But on the back side, we could use the smaller fence and or
said-
move it off the wall at that point.
You said the fence on the retaining wall is different?
Well, there's two different fences. There's one that encloses the pool, and then as we have the retaining wall kind of kicking out a little bit, I have to put a fence on that, just so if no one's in the pool complex and they're walking around, they don't go off the wall. So there's really, you got two different fences, I would say on the east side of the pool.
East side, okay. So there are like two lines there you're showing.
Yeah,
One
you see-
is where the wall length is, and you show PR solid vinyl privacy fence?
Correct, so if you follow, the retaining wall is that hatched, line that's going
Mhm.
down. That's just a retaining wall fence to protect anybody from, just walking off the wall.
Okay.
And then as you get closer to the pool, if you're moving more southwest to the pool, there's one that encloses the pool. It just so happens on the back side of it, the wall and the fence are one and the same. So that's the fence that we could make smaller because there's nothing in the back of us to see over that. And it's on top of the wall.
So we have two fences.
Yes. You have a fence that basically encompasses the pools,
Right.
and then where the pool and the wall separate, you have a fence that goes on top of the wall.
I'm just trying to, visually, there's going to be two different fences. They really should,
And the reason why the wall deviates from the pool is so that our sewer line is accessible.
okay. It's too bad they can't be one and the same.
It could, then the sewer line and the pump station would have to be built into the pool,
Like
the concrete
the
apron of
deck?
the pool, yeah. And we didn't want that just in case there was a problem or something with the pump station or the force main.
Can you make that lawn area?
That's what it is, that's what we're proposing. So once you hit the edge of the concrete of the pool, the rest of it is grass.
So why can't the retaining wall fence be the limits for the pool, and you just have grassed area there? Or is there something, you don't want that? Have a little grass within the pool area? Or you could do gravel, I guess. I don't know what the kids do within there. Do they hang out? Do they?
I'm not gonna do gravel, they're gonna
They'll
throw it in the pool.
Hmm?
I'm not gonna do gravel, they're gonna throw it in the pool.
Oh, not good.
They are kids.
Yeah.
So what about just putting grass down there?
Yeah, we can take her in.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, why put two fences up?
Yeah, we were just keeping that separate for basic access to the utility.
All right. I don't know, what do you think, Mark? Is that okay? or-
No, that eliminates one fence, and then you would just
Yeah.
probably want to have a gate in the area where the piping goes out through the front, so if you need to access it, you can go in from that portion.
So then we say we get rid of a fence.
And then you pick up a grassed area that's kind of makes the pool area a little bit bigger. I would ask that, after all this discussion, the plan clearly indicate the type of fence, now that John is aware that it's a proposed corrugated metal fence rather than vinyl, and then call out the heights for where you transition from 6 to 8, so that when Ben inherits this plan, he'll know what the board approved.
What are the colors of the buildings there right now?
Brownish.
Brownish, is that going to ever change, or that's the way it is going to be for a while? Is it like a tannish brown,
Grayish brown.
grayish brown?
So I will do probably this colors.
Some, the
But
same.
The Glenwood, the grill school is red, so that's why I did red and,
That's why you tried to
yeah.
use that
to match
color?
it, but
Maybe
red
do
is
like
not belonging
maybe
here.
do a gray and a white or something like
Yeah,
that here.
something like that.
Okay, so just show us a spec on the plan.
Gray and
And-
white,
That's my suggestion, I think it's up to the group.
gray and white.
And then we'll do the max of 8 and then 6 on the backside.
So you need the actual picture from fencing like this with gray and white?
Unless you just want to do
Are you sure you want to do it white? Is that
Yeah, I guess that gets dirty, right?
Well, then, wintertime, that'll,
With corrugated metal, might start to rust. So maybe it should be a
Not
darker
rustic,
color.
it's-
I would do like a beige or tan or something that,
We don't have to do two-tone. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
something that fits.
Two-tone is much nice, it's nice.
You like the two-tone? I don't feel strongly.
I think it was already used the two colors from the two different schools, so it kind of made sense, I think. The beige and red.
Okay.
maroon.
So just kind of tie it in with whatever's there now,
okay.
and you could use two colors, and then just show it as a detail on the plan. Are you going to do this for Tuesday, or we'll do this as a condition that you'll bring a final plan?
I will do this, I will have to.
Sorry?
Well, asking your engineer.
I won't be reviewing it before Tuesday.
You won't.
Promise you that.
So,
You know what? We'll make it a
Just a
condition.
we'll bring the photos, so then on Tuesday we
And
can
the
see what they
condition
come.
is that the approval, the site plan will not be signed until the board has signed off on the satisfactory fence plan?
Yeah, and the engineer, yeah, has signed off. And so you'll make the revisions as we discussed.
Yes.
The
Okay.
last comment I had on the plan of the three was that this plan notes on the overall plan the proposed trailers, which are not part of this application. So just remove the reference to proposed trailers so that no one mistakenly thinks that's part of this approval.
Thank you.
This area must be grass, or we can do concrete too?
I mean, if you really want to do concrete, and if we don't have an impervious surface issue, coverage issue, then I think you can do concrete. I was just thinking cost-wise, that's, it might be easier to landscape. Oh, and also
I
he
don't
has to get
wanna-
access
Yeah,
to
I don't
the,
want to bury the,
Okay.
yeah. Maybe, what about pervious pavers?
I don't want to be limited to grass, if they decide, well, then
I was just thinking pervious pavers, because it can be taken up if you have to get access, if you don't want something that's lawn.
it's up to you.
You want to think about it and let us know
Yes,
on Tuesday?
On Tuesday we'll know.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
This is my,
You see we had a little student today.
Yes, I saw that.
have a good night.
I know you're coming. Good night, thank you.
Good night, thanks.
All right, the next item on the agenda. Well, the next item on the agenda is Meadow Hill, but the applicant is not present. And I did send an email to Joe Fowl, but I did not receive a response. Should we even entertain this? Mark, did you do a review? Do you want to go over
I
it?
have notes, but I supposed to do
What do we normally do if on previous workshops not entertain it, or?
They submitted and it's on the agenda, we can discuss it, but if you think you're gonna have to do it again when it's here, I don't know if it's helpful, it's up to you. No prohibition on your discussion, it's on the agenda, they submitted, they asked to be on, they didn't come.
Anybody have comments?
I think we could wait.
You want to wait? Okay.
I will tell you that in the lease submittal, they confirmed that the speed limit along that section of road is 55. So my initial review said that one of the critical issues would be all these driveways coming out onto the county highway.
Yeah.
And in fact, they very astutely have made it a priority to measure all the site distances from all the proposed driveways so that they believe they're ready, as soon as the board authorizes it, to send it to county DPW to get feedback on the driveway locations, given the fact it's a 55-mile-an-hour zone. So my only suggestion to the board is I wouldn't get too drilled down on other aspects until we find out if it's even possible with county DPW to get all these driveways in. So that would seem to be the, kind of the first step.
So, I wasn't here at the last meeting where this was first entertained. And just full disclosure, when I had been employed at another firm about 7 years ago, we worked on a project which I thought incorporated these lots. It was a Camp Monroe site, and I believe it came all the way out and included this property, and these lots were proposed in Monroe already. So I'm a little confused. Is this now separate and apart? Is there anything happening on the Chester side that we know of?
I've seen the application.
You know, Noreen, I think we should reach out to the town of Chester, just to let them know that, A, we have this application in front of us.
Okay.
I don't know if that other subdivision was withdrawn. It was so many years ago, and since I left, you know, I don't know what the status of
I
that.
think the sale of that property was in the newspapers.
Recently, yeah, I saw that. And then I think I saw references to subdivisions, so I'd just like to see if there's something going on right across the boundary that should be coordinated, especially because we have wetlands on this site, number one. Number two, I assume I don't have a conflict of interest since it's been over 7 years.
I wouldn't think so. It's not this project. You're not going to gain any financial benefits from it.
Okay. They have to do a cluster subdivision, which is why they did the resource plan. There may be some limitations given the shape of the lot and its location that we'll look into. I guess other than that, there's not a lot to really discuss at this point. We really should have the applicant present. I will acknowledge Tracy Shoes in the audience from Preservation Collective, from Town of Chester, but you monitor different projects in the area. Did you want to say anything, just since you're here and attending, about this particular application? Yeah, and the applicant's not here, so.
No, I just piggyback what you just said about the property adjacent to it. There was a subdivision to take off the camp.
Excuse me, can we have her come up to the...
Sure, why don't you come up, Tracy? Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, just as an FYI, because I'm listening, because I was at the Chester, followed the Chester.
All right, actually, why don't you introduce yourself to the board so they know who you are?
Tracy Shea.
We're going to make it official.
With a nonprofit, Preservation Collective, and we do follow development projects in the Monroe and Chester area, and we were incorporated many years ago. We started actually following with the Henry Farms development project, which is across the street from this one. But when the Camp Monroe project came about, probably in 2004, we followed it, which consisted of this parcel, and it connected into another section, which now is subdivided, and I believe the same owner has this now. It's 26 acres. And that project had lots, the same amount of lots, but configured differently. There was a access road and like a cul-de-sac and went into the other property. So there was one driveway with like 4 houses, and then the road continued on or something. It was just configured differently, so there was only like 3 driveways rather than 8, but still the same amount of lots because it went into the other property. But just as an FYI, he does own another parcel. It's 5 acres down the street, just a little bit more, and he's proposing 3 lots. So it looks like he did buy 3 separate lots, all kind of contiguous to each other.
Is that subdivision of the 3 next to this one of the 5? Do you know?
No, they're separated by the big 26-acre one.
All right.
In the middle, but and a road because it's on the other opposite side of. It's at the corner of Pickerel and Camp Monroe.
All right, I'm just going to pull this up so we can.
But my concern always was from the following of the Henry Farms project, all the water that comes off of Henry Farms goes under the road. Goes under the road into the drainage, and it goes along down Camp Monroe Road, and then crosses right at that intersection of Pickerel and Camp Monroe Road, and then goes into the wetlands, and then goes into the stream, and then goes into the lake. So there's a lot of water concerns.
So let's see here. Where are we? So this, I think, is the parcel right in here, right? That must be it?
Which one are you talking about?
Is this it? 3711?
Yep, that's us.
Okay, so that's the part of it that is in front of us.
Right, and then
This is-
next to it is vacant.
Okay.
I don't know what he's doing with that one.
Okay.
And then the corner one, at the corner of Pickerel and Camp Monroe.
Here? Or
No,
this
that's
one?
that one,
Okay, this one?
yeah.
That's
Okay.
vacant?
That's when he's got 3 lots proposed, because there's a drainage goes right through there, and a stream goes through there. So he's got 3 lots proposed right now there, but it's under review because the one lot is under review because of the water.
Okay, so that's 15124, and then this is a separate,
That one we don't know. I didn't hear mention anything about it at the
okay.
Chester meeting.
And then this one, all right. so-
But I have old maps that showed that parcel, the one you're reviewing,
Mhm.
was part of the bigger subdivision a long time ago.
Right.
It just was configured differently.
And I seem to remember it was in part because there would be fewer access points coming out to,
The town of Chester was concerned about having an access, all that development, because it was going to be a much bigger project.
right,
Coming out onto Camp Monroe Road, which is like a, what do they call it, paper road?
okay.
It's not to specs, I guess. So they didn't want all that traffic coming out that way, so they wanted an access road to Lakes. And they also didn't, the residents complained on the other side. On Washington, they didn't want all the traffic going through their neighborhood.
So we have the stream coming through here. That's part of the site. I can see some old stone walls and definitely wetland area in here. And it's across from our landfill.
Right, but at the corner of Camp Monroe and
Over here.
and Lakes Road, there's the stream goes there. For all the water, there's all the water from Henry Farms kind of comes down and goes underneath Lakes Road.
Okay,
And on one side, and then you have the stream, and you have stream also on the other side. So Camp Monroe's got water
right, I
on
see it
one side
coming
and
through
then underneath
here.
the road, and then it comes back out.
Right, this looks like it's the pipe or the culvert, whatever that comes through, and then this way
Yeah,
and out.
but there's also, when you get down to the corner of Pickerel, there's a whole, there's a drainage right there at the corner.
And here?
No, down at the corner of Pickerel and Camp Monroe. Oh, right at the corner of your map.
Oh, there, okay,
Goes across, comes out.
okay,
So, and that's, it looks like it's coming from the water from the other end of the road.
okay.
So the highway, Chester Highway Department and the planning chairman's looking at that issue. Just as an FYI, those are the things that are going on the other end that you may not know about. But
Well,
I thought
good to
maybe,
know.
I came tonight because I was curious about what was happening with the bigger parcel in between the two.
Right, and
If it was just a matter of, because I don't know, it's 3 acre, it's zoned 3 acres, so I don't know how many lots can be made out of that. But I didn't know if there was an interconnection between this one and that one as was proposed years ago.
right,
Or,
we haven't received,
traffic,
right,
because then what's going to happen is it will be, this one will be isolated, and then that one would all, whatever is going to happen on those 26 acres will come out onto Camp Monroe Road.
right,
That would be their only access point.
right,
Because the town has blocked off the Washington access. So that 26 acres can only come out onto Camp Monroe Road or through this site,
okay,
just as FYI.
okay.
Okay.
So I think we should just, send a notice to Chester, let them know that this is in front of us. They're a joining community and, they may have some comments. But it sounds like right now that other vacant parcel isn't in front of Chester. So we'll have to
That
just.
hasn't been native yet,
Right,
but I don't know how that works. I've seen it before happen on bigger parcels where we had 3 projects once, and when I brought up the fact that, water impacts and off-site wells, all of a sudden the bigger one withdrew, and each one went separately, and they got their approvals, and then the other one came back. So to me, all that's kind of like segmentation, but I don't know what's happening.
yeah, well, the adjoining property is Meadow Hill LLC. And Jenna Drive, I think is that Mr. Sorrentino? I believe, yeah, okay, I remember that. All right.
Just one other FYI, I'm
Sure.
interested about those driveways, because I didn't check before I left here, but I'm pretty sure that's also the county's going to have an issue with, I think they let that be the passing, the broken lines there. That's where people pass each other. That's
Okay.
a stretch of road that because I come out of Camp Monroe, plenty of times you see people passing in that, because it's 55 and it's a straightaway right there. So I think that if they do want to do those driveways, they're probably going to want to address the
passing lane.
lane availability.
Okay.
Just throw
We'll
that
definitely
in.
have to refer it
Make it
over to the
a
county
curve
once we
lane.
even
Yeah,
have a
that would be
plan.
part of the
Curve
review.
it there.
Do we allow shared driveways? Do you recall?
We have
Thanks.
historically, just the code.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Shared driveways at the curb cut, but not shared use, because then it constitutes a private road
Okay,
under the street regulations.
okay. This one's going to be interesting because we have our cluster provisions and you have wetlands. But because of its linear shape, I don't know how close we could get houses together, because in the best of all worlds, we would have shared driveways or pair 'em up.
At the access point.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, I think you probably also have a provision of your subdivision regulations that suggests the need to make provision to connect undeveloped adjoining lands with this development. You know, provision for another street to avoid the use of the secondary street, which would suggest something other than a lot of driveways, but rather a roadway.
Right. I think we need to check, I have to check if this is a scenic road, if we designated it one. So as we go through the review, there may be a buffer that's required, undisturbed buffer, other than for driveways. That needs to be retained. And then, of course, we're going to have to do a wetland check on this. We should send this to Conservation Commission, ask them to check out the property, and they're also going to have to check out the trees for the tree requirements. So I think with that, really, again, we can't do much because they're not in front of us, so. Any other comments, or, no?
Well, I've been on Lakes Road, and those driveways, if you go to Greenwood Lake, are annoying as hell. The road is too narrow, and they don't get over, or maybe they're just obnoxious about it. And you slow from 55 to 10 or to 5,
Yeah.
and you're like, really? You couldn't eke over or whatever, but, you know, it's not
Yeah.
obligated to, but
It is
they're
a fast
awful.
road.
It is. I mean, you know, everyone else behind me is going that fast too. So if someone wants to make that turn, it's awful to get behind them. But
Tracy, the Appalachian Trail isn't by that area, it's further, right? Farther south?
Actually, the Highlands Trail is there because the Highlands Trail is not, it goes along Monroe Road.
Okay.
It goes down Lakes Road.
Oh.
They walk along the shoulder.
So from Cantlin Road to Highlands, do they connect up to Appalachian?
Then they get the Appalachian down the road.
Okay, good to know.
By the power lines.
Okay. So it's the Highlands Trail.
And that whole 40-50 zoning, speed limit is further towards the Village of Monroe by the lake.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it starts and ends, but
Yeah.
for this stretch, they've confirmed it is
But it
55.
could affect that other subdivision that's going on by Paseo Park or...
Yeah, I think the Village of Monroe took over control of Lakes Road from
Really?
the county. I think the entirety of it is now Village Road. That gets maintained by the village,
I
thought.
know Stage Road or Still Road is, or one of them. Lake, going out by my street, really.
Need help getting home?
You're lost.
Yeah. What's next on our agenda? I
It's
keep
not
asking
listed on-
because I have two and I don't know.
I know,
which
it's
one
not
to
listed
do.
on the agenda, but you have the proposed schedule for next year that everybody needs to look at.
Okay. Did anybody get a
You
chance
need
to come
sign
look at
that
it?
form, I did.
Okay. So, Noreen, could you let us know what is this form that you?
It is the ethics form that was sent out to you by Jen.
This is sexual
Noreen.
harassment.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I forget which one she gave me. This
Okay.
is sexual, came out by Jen, Tony's secretary.
Okay.
And nobody responded with a signed signature.
Okay.
So I'm here tonight, if you don't sign them,
To collect them.
yes,
Okay.
you need to sign it
Or
for me
else.
to take back, or we're all in trouble.
Okay. Anybody?
Anthony was the only one who signed his prior to tonight.
he gets a gold star.
Yay.
You need to sign yours.
I'm
Gave me theirs back.
There you go, Noreen.
So, anything else, Mike? Mark?
Yeah, November and December are traditionally difficult months for people in this business, and because of Christmas, we have so many meetings in my office that I cannot get here next week. I will have the resolution for you on this,
Okay.
but I have a heavy agenda in another municipality that I really need to cover.
Okay.
And
Okay.
none of my partners are available.
Okay.
I will have the resolution, and if somebody writes any corrections on it and gets it back to me, I can fix it after the meeting.
Okay.
And Sean will be here for me next week.
Oh, okay.
I was waiting for that
I
one.
won't be here
You
either.
knew that was
You
coming.
won't be
Yeah,
here?
he emailed that he wouldn't be
Okay.
here.
Anybody else not going to be here, or everybody else can make it? Just so we know that we have a quorum.
Jeff
Otherwise,
said he would be here.
okay.
Do we
very
know
good.
which applicants will be appearing?
Well, definitely Sherry Tora.
I'll talk to Meadow Hill tomorrow to see what happened, but I don't know whether you want them to come on
I don't know that
Tuesday.
I do. because
Definitely,
it's
That's
not
your
your
call,
show.
not mine.
And who else would we have? that would
It's
be
just
it.
Sherry Torah.
short
Kingsville
one.
has got a lot of work to do.
Right.
And Meadow Hill wasn't here tonight, so I don't know whether or not you want to entertain them.
I don't think so.
So
I mean, the only other thing is Sherry Torah, you don't want to make them wait till January, that would be your next meeting.
Yeah, no, so I think we'll entertain Sherry Torah, and that'll be it.
and adopt next year's
Yeah.
calendar.
Right.
I'll
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sure I have those comments done. I'll clean up the Kingsville comments so I can send you Dave
Next week.
with the board's
Next-
authorization. I'll
Next week,
just send them so we can get going.
Okay.
And we'll wait for
Hey,
January
this
for
one is long.
Meadow Hill, and maybe Gomez will get their variances.
Okay.
All right,
Sounds
so
good.
Sherry Torah, and then we're gonna make a resolution on the calendar, so please look at the calendars
Just make sure you
for
look at the dates.
Tuesday.
Okay. I already know I won't be here on February 14th. I will be in Asia. So,
I don't understand why you can't be here if you're in Asia.
I don't.
That's besides
I mean,
the
I
point.
really.
Valentine's Day,
You just
really?
skip over here and go
Who
back.
picks this stuff?
Second Thursday of the month.
It's like a national holiday.
Would you like me to change that one?
No, that's all right.
You let me know.
All
I
right.
guess I'll be hanging out with Bonnie on Valentine's. Quick, but okay.
So on that note,
I know a lot of people.
may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Mike, before you go, I got a question for you.